Alright, hello. This is a video I've been trying to make for like 3 days. Because every time that I've tried to make it, there has been a problem with my microphone through OBS. So hopefully that problem is now fixed and I can finally get this video out. In this video, we're gonna see the best builds from Build Pioneer Season 1. And we are gonna basically explain, first of all, what Build Pioneers is, because some of you may not know it. Build Pioneers is a series that I do in this channel, where there is a chat on my Discord where I announce a weapon, and then you guys have a week to just brainstorm the best idea you have for a build for your favorite weapon that actually works, but it's completely unorthodox. It uses mods that you normally don't see. So you may see less galvanized mods, you may see weird damage combinations like gas on primary weapons, you may see some weird synergies. There is a lot to be had, and the series is a lot of fun for both me and you, because the winner every week obviously gets some kind of reward, and usually it is a veil driven of their choice. So with that, let's go and see the best builds from Season 1. It was 15 weeks, and I have chosen, I think, 13 builds. Either 12 or 13, I don't remember. And yeah, they're all very different and very unique on their own, and I really hope you guys like it. So let's start with the first build, which is on the Tenet Detron. And this build is by a person on my Discord called Squish. This was his build. And well, I'm gonna showcase the submission here that they sent for their build in an edit. And yeah, it's gonna be, you know, very confusing to load. That is how I actually got the picture as well, do not worry. But the idea is that you wanna use Arcane Pistolier and Energized Munitions paired with Mirage's first ability, the alt-fire of this weapon, and as much magazine size as possible. Because what the alt-fire does, it rapidly expands the magazine in a single burst. Now, I have tried to increase the magazine even further, but there seems to be a limit of around 10 bullets anyways, so I don't think it matters if you increase it more than 12, so you get the headshot on the first 2 bullets, let's say, and then you start expanding the magazine, but overall, this works. Obviously, because we're going for headshots, he added pistol accuracy, and then he built the weapon for as much crit as possible and headshot stuff. And I think what Squish did on his build is go for viral and magnetic at the same time. But I thought I would do blast and magnetic, because blast with this build could be even funnier. Especially since our Warframe of choice is Mirage. Now Mirage, as I said, we're going for Energized Munitions. I'm going for a standard build, and we'll have Arcane Velocity and Arcane Pistolier for that sweet 100% ammo efficiency, so we can spam the alt-fire. So let's see how this works in an actual mission, shall we? And the idea is that we don't really need to use Eclipse, we can only really, not need necessarily, but use Hall of Mirrors. That will be enough. So I'm gonna go to this large open area here so I have a bit more space. And I'm gonna use a damage reduction Eclipse so I don't die. Because it is kind of a Squish and Mirage build, and this is kinda how it works. Once you get Pistolier, you just hold the alt-fire button down with firing manual weapons continuously. And as you can see, it just keeps going on its own. And goes pretty nuts, honestly. So yeah, not too crazy in terms of damage, really funny as a build. This can be done on any pistol that has a mechanic like this, so I'm thinking HydroidPrime. I remember one of the Kuva weapons also had this mechanic, I think, at least. And yeah, in general, this is a pretty cool idea. I had an idea, the idea that I did for that week was using thermomagnetic shells, and then abusing it with secondary Shiver, which made it multiplicative. I've already made a video about that. I'll add it into the description if you guys want to see that, what I did for that week. because it was kind of a big discovery on my part, but this was the build that definitely won that week, because, I mean, look at it, it's so fun to play. And it actually works. And Mirage, even though, like, normally I would give less points to a person for using a specific overpowered Warframe for gun buffing like Mirage, here Mirage is not really used for her clips, but her clones just bring even more chaos, which is really, really nice. So, it's pretty in theme, and I gave it the benefit of the doubt, kinda. And you still kinda have to aim for headshots, because, you know, we're using accuracy, so we need to have our cursor at hell level, kinda. One small thing that I could do for this build to make it better is using a primed recoil mode, because, you know, back then they didn't exist, but now that they do exist, a primed recoil mode could make this even better. Although, aesthetics-wise, it would kinda ruin it, I'm not gonna lie. But, you know, if you do have primed steady hands and it's maxed out, or normal steady hands even, because we do have Deadhead, you can use it and it should be really, really cool with this. But, you know, I can't. I don't have the capacity, and I'm not reformatting my Tenet Detron just for this. Anyways, our next build is gonna be on a Tomfinger. So the Tomfinger, if you don't know, the primary version is a kit gun. It shoots, it's a really strong AoE, especially for early game. So if you're an early game player, like a build like this can absolutely carry you through the entire game, because it is absolutely crazy. And, you know, this is just a stats mode, so you can replace this with, I don't know, honestly, like hammer shots, maybe this if you want, and then something. Just straight up damage is kind of the build, the idea. Vigilante armaments could also be good here, like, you know, so straight damage is kind of what you want, really. Bane mode, obviously really, really good if you want to go that way. But yeah, fire rate also could have been really, really good if you don't have fire rate. But with this specific part of the Tomfinger, you don't necessarily need fire rate, it's just better to have. So this build is very interesting. I'm gonna showcase this without abusing Rhino even, because normally the build abuses Rhino. But I'm just gonna take this wisp because I think it's more than enough and it's gonna keep my pet alive, because the idea here is a pet buffing Tomfinger build with Theorem Infection. So Theorem Infection, what it does is, if you have a residual arcane on your kit gun, which in Jazz's build, which is this one by the way, he has residual shock, which gives us a 20% chance to spawn an electrified spike for 12 seconds, which deals electricity damage to nearby enemies. And then any Theorem Arcane affects that electricity damage, and for this one specifically, if we stand close to the spike, which will look like a tentacle actually, any companions or summoned allies within 90 meters are affected by the arcane itself and gain 24% elemental damage per second up to 15 times. Now, 24 times 15 is 300, so this is 300% elemental damage. Or wait, it's a bit more. It's 360%. It's 360% elemental damage. So 360% electricity damage at max stacks to your pet. Very insane. And for Jazz's sake, the normal use was a Nautilus and, you know, the classic Verglass Nautilus damage cap stuff, but I think it would be way funnier to see if my Kavat would go even stronger by this, so let's use that. Because a lot of people are asking for the build, also here it is. This is like my normal Adarza. Left to right matters, by the way, so make sure these mods are actually in order like this. This is very important, because if you don't do this and you don't have Sharpened Claws here, the Kavat will not armor shred the target, and then Cat's Eye, if it's like here, it will be very late. You won't do it immediately. It's kind of weird with pets. You want the order that goes like this to matter. So copy the build as is. For the clothes, it doesn't really matter as much, but you know, here is the actual build. This is pretty much the go-to pet build that I have for everything, by the way. So any pet that I use, unless it's a mecha dog, will use this. Because I use Kavats mainly, you know. Regardless, yeah. this is a build for pet buffing, so let's see how it performs. You can add vigilante supplies, but it doesn't really matter, so I'm not gonna do that. And we're gonna see how my pets, my Kavat will do in the same exact mission. So we are on the Sulky mission again, and I'm gonna show you how the arcane works, because I'm sure 99% of the people watching this video haven't even seen it ever. So we're gonna add our buffs, give our cat roar, and then when we shoot, we see this guy pop up from the ground. This is the tentacle that I was talking about, and standing next to it is giving us this cool buff, Pyrium Infection. So we stand next to it, and then we keep killing until more of these tentacles appear. There we go. And now, our Kavat, targeting people, is an absolute beast. It's dealing so much damage that it literally one-shots any enemy and gives them an electric proc at times. So, you know. It also spawns more tentacles, so that is pretty funny. Also, the Pyrium Infection buff, even though I'm standing on it, will disappear. That is a known bug with the UI. Don't worry, it's not actually like disappearing for sure. It just bugged, sadly. Just like everything else in this game. So it still remains, but you know, from now on we won't be able to see any of the actual effects on the UI, so that's pretty bad. But just make sure to stand next to them. They have a pretty big timer, so you shouldn't really run out ever. And as you can see, the build itself on its own is doing okay damage, which is pretty great, so you can use this on your own if you want. But the real star of the show is the Kavat dealing 380,000 damage per hit, so yeah. Go get him, bro. 115k dies instantly. Now, Adarza Kavat is not the best thing to showcase for this one, not because it's bad, but because it has low status chance, and pets that have really big status chance and can make use of that extra 360% electricity will also proc Contagious Bond after pretty frequently and make absolutely insane stuff out of this, but you know. If you have a heat proc from your main weapon, that will also work with this, and then the heat proc will spread with Contagious Bond, and heat proc plus Contagious Bond plus roar equals infinite damage in this game. So, you know, very, very cool. But yeah, if you have a Verglass, you want to make it better, you can use this and it will absolutely shred anything and everything. The damage that it puts out is pretty crazy. And obviously, for Verglass, because you usually go for heat on it, you should use Residual Boils, which looks a bit different, instead of this Residual Arcane, and that will work just fine. As you see, even through normal means of playing, like just primary fire shooting, this is still okay. Not the greatest, obviously. The normal build will do far, far better from this weapon, but this is still really nice. $700,000 damage. Nice job, Kavat. So yes, it is pretty sexy. It is really, really cool. And if you like buffing your pet, if you like your Verglass doing everything, this is just the build for you. And up next, we have a build from Divine that, you know, the build was focused around Hystrix Prime, but it showcases a Dante interaction that not a lot of people seem to know or use.
Of what we're actually diving into. And it's so easy to become excited and to just want to rush in, but you can't do that with every boot. Some boot you gotta eat, some boot you gotta some gotta prepare. You just cannot rush in, especially if you got a big fish. Like, you gotta be sensitive to the bottom.
So the build itself is this one. Actually, no. This was the upgraded version of the build, because I showcased him that if you add crits and if you don't add crits, because this is how he had it, and you had status duration, this performs even better, but this is how Divine's build was, so you know, whatever. But the idea of this build is through Final Verse. So Final Verse if we use Tragedy, it says damage over time from slash, heat, and toxin status effects accumulate in a single blast. So this works similarly to a very interesting subsume ability called Expedite Suffering. And it's a subsume ability that I use a lot, but this is way stronger than Expedite Suffering for 3 reasons. First of all, the damage multiplier here on the base is a 3 times instead of a 1 times, so it boosts the damage by 3 times over. It does damage on its own, and also Expedite Suffering does not affect heat damage, while Dante's Tragedy does actually affect heat damage. So the idea is, with a Hystrix Prime from Divine, is that you use a Hystrix Prime with pure heat damage, Cascadia Flare, and the Heat Coil, and then you just go to town. So we're gonna take a Bubanico, we're gonna build it for priming, just like this, and then we're gonna go into a mission. And the idea is, this is a disruption build, so for disruption targets, you just prime them with a Bubanico, then you shoot 1 mag with the Hystrix Prime, and if by some miracle they stay alive, then you press Tragedy. Now, for the base demos, they won't stay alive. Spoiler alert. They really don't. So we're not gonna see that ever. But as you can see, I have Cephalon Simaris here, and he's gonna help me out because he's giving me a heavy gunner target, and that guy is actually way more tanky than the demos on base Steelpath, which helps quite a bit. So I'm just gonna prepare Tragedy. So right now it's up, and yeah, we can now play Parkwheel. By the way, I really don't like playing Dante, not because I find him boring. In fact, I really like Dante, but why does he have this dash animation that locks you in place, man? Like, dashing in this game is very important to parkouring, and you do it all the time, and using Dante's dash locks you in place and you can't stop it at all. So if you do a bad dash onto something, oh, I run into a nullifier, a wall, the pit, something, now I'm dead, you know? So, not really ideal, sadly, but it's fine. So with the Darzakavat and the crit buff, we obviously see that we get orange crits even from this. It does a lot of damage, so yeah, don't worry too much about it. I'm gonna show you how it does versus a demo, but you know, on the demo itself, I think we were just gonna outright kill him because the damage from the Hystrix is more than enough, especially when the target is primed. So instead, I will have to find that one Simaris target, most likely. So we're gonna do that after. Yeah, see? It's not really gonna happen that I will actually have the chance to use Tragedy at these levels, so yeah. Do not worry about it. Let's go find the Simaris targets. Oh, there he is. Alright, give me some... Yep, there we go. Perfect. 140 million damage. And this guy has way more damage reduction than the demos, by the way. So, the demos... On Divine's video that he sent to me, which I'm not gonna show because the video has questionable audio, he dealt upwards of 400 million damage with Tragedy Final Verse. And this is just on a Hystrix Prime, right? I'm not saying it's a bad weapon, it's not by any means, this thing shreds, but holy shit, can you imagine on a weapon that does way more heat procs or something that, like, I don't know, a heat phage, for example, or some crazy shit like that. Something that absolutely destroys someone with hit procs. This will do so much freaking damage. This would be absolutely crazy. I don't know, Tenet Glaxin would be so good with this. So yeah, not quite the Hystrix Prime build, for sure. So the Divine didn't actually win that week, but the Dante tech is something that you don't see often, and I don't see people talk about. So it's definitely something to keep in mind and to showcase, because I feel like mainly people that play this guy actually know this, and not people that just have him in the squad. Because, you know, people that have him in the squad always say, oh my god, free overguard, oh my god. And then it's like, yeah bro, okay. Also, Tragedy was mostly known for its nuke button, basically, with Dark Burst. So you would do double Dark Burst and then Tragedy, and it was nuking. But yeah, it is not quite like that, and people just started crying after the nerf and saying he's bad. But I mean, like, okay, not the end of the world, obviously. But enough of that. Let's jump into the next build. And I'm sad to announce that this build actually doesn't even work properly as of right now. It's bugged. Because this build is focused around Amanata's specific mode, Amanata Pressure. And this random status effect to enemies application thing, it simply doesn't work. It doesn't happen right now. Normally, this build has 2 Tennokai modes to proc this as much as possible and to give it extra range. However, it saddens me to say that it doesn't actually apply the random status effect to enemies hit. We just get the damage. And it's still really, really strong. So Crisp here with his double Tennokai mode absolutely shredded. And he was one of the 2 winners of the Amanata episode. It is, I don't know. I need to show you the results because obviously you'll be like, this is very weird to Tennokai modes. But trust me when I say this actually destroys. We're gonna take this Wisp again, put a Warcry on it with Arcane Reapers so it's like super tanky, and take a Dexterity Arcane. That should be fine. Now, I wish Amanata Pressure actually worked so I can show you how this build is supposed to look like. But DE being DE, sometimes things break in this game for like 0 reason whatsoever. I'm not sure when Amanata Pressure actually broke and doesn't work, because it did work when this build actually happened, and I could see it, but now it doesn't, so this is great. I hope it works again at some point so we can maybe revisit this, because like, yeah, it's kinda sad right now. This was one of the better builds and it sadly doesn't work. So you can see with double Tennokai mode, we get Tennokai pretty much all the time, and we also get the extra range, so there is a lot to be had here. The random blessings can also help with the extra range, the extra stat speed, status damage, critical chance, you know, it gives you a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff. But we're almost at 8x, we're about to reach it. Why are these guys so slow? Alright, now we're at 9x. So from now on, every heavy attack should have given us a gas, a slash, and then a random status effect. But we're only getting gas or slash. And puncture at some times. But puncture is a part of the weapon. It can happen. It's just not as common, basically. But, you know, the mode is broken. Sadly. And even though the mode is broken, we're still getting this. And 300k gas proc, so yeah, it's pretty good. I would say really good, matter of fact. I just know it's like even better than this, and it saddens me to not be able to show how much better it is. Because you can imagine that this uses afflictions, right? The heavy attack, it knocks the enemy down when using afflictions. And therefore, because it knocks the enemy down, it procs the gas 7 times, and then whatever else it procs 7 times. So imagine the random status effects rolls into a heat proc, or an electric proc. The cold proc, I don't know, something. It can proc anything, and it would be 1,000 times better. But oh, we saw a heat proc there, randomly, but it doesn't actually, you know, occur again. Oh, oops. Anyways, and I also did a heavy attack without Tennokai, and that also didn't proc a random status effect, so no. It's not Tennokai bugging this, it's not something else. The weapon is just not working, sadly. And I wish it did. Anyways, we're getting invaded by these guys, you know, have fun. And yeah, that's 2 million gas proc onto the infested. And why is it 2 million? Well, obviously these guys don't have armor, so gas procs absolutely shred them. Very fun. How I wish it worked perfectly so I can showcase it, but, you know, I'm sadly not gonna be like that. Not this time. And I don't want to wait another patch that randomly fixes this in like, let's say a month in order to make this video. I just want to make it, honestly. But the next video is gonna be, not the next video, sorry. The next build is gonna be the build that kinda got me the idea to make this video in this first place. And this build is by a user called HydroidPrime. And he created a Titania build that is built for Index, actually. So I'm gonna showcase his submission right now on screen, so you can see how it looks like. And yeah, there's a lot of things happening here, obviously. He also has his core there, which is really nice. But the idea is, well, Titania has the built-in vacuum on her 4th ability, first of all. So that helps a lot. Then, health conversion will obviously grant us armor doing health orbs. This armor will then translate to energy through Arcane Battery. And then Arcane Energize plus Nourish will ensure that we are on full energy all the time. With that, Catalyzing Shields and Brief Respite, which I don't have and I don't actually need, will give us the sufficient shields in order to shield gate if we ever take damage. Titania's one will give us status immunity so we don't die to electricity procs. And then here it was narrow-minded instead of Razor Wing Blitz, but I found out Razor Wing Blitz to be better and also have formatted this to have at least one augment because Titania's augments are all pretty cool. So at the end of the day, we have a really strong build that has infinite energy, a lot of damage, very good against Corpus because it is viral plus toxin through Dex and Pixia. And the only thing that I'm missing from the Dex and Pixia, sorry, it's Primed Expel Corpus. And I don't have this, but this still shreds just like that. I also had a targeting subsystem, I'm not sure if you had it, but I found out this to be really good on Titania in general, and when you aim, this is way more accurate as a weapon, so this is really nice. But yeah, this is the Titania build itself. And this was absolutely genius. This was one of the best builds that had ever been submitted in the series. Possibly the best at the time. And it's obviously my go-to Titania build now for Index. I usually use, I use some Wisp build variation, use something else, just did some other stuff. But this is just so robust and so much more comfortable than everything else that I can't recommend it enough. Also, if you ever do Index, do as I did and go to the dojo and start it from here, because you're gonna get the outside tile set, which is way faster and way more efficient to farm on. The inside tile set is also really weird with the spawns, so I don't really recommend it. Now, there are more things about this build that make it really good for Index, which you're gonna see in this mission, because I can't really explain it without showcasing it. And one of them is the Razorflies. The Razorflies, besides... Sorry, I said it correct. So the Razorflies, besides giving the damage vulnerability to enemies, they also give you UAV, essentially, which is really cool. And why do I say they give you UAV? Because as you can see, when they target them, also this is on Steel Path, by the way, so, everything you see, we can obviously get way easier and faster results by playing on the normal path, but I don't need to. But yeah, what I want to showcase is basically, if I go close to an enemy, or my Razorflies are on them, I can see them through the wall, essentially, and just target them. I already have some UAV due to the Index being the Index, but this also gives me UAV on my screen by the Razorflies targeting someone, and then me shooting them is instantly killing them. Sort of, because, Razorflies, damage vulnerability, Titania, they are really cool together. So yeah, as you can see right now, we have 900 energy. We're close to the max. We're gonna get to the max very soon. Don't worry about that. Just like running around and killing people gets us to the max anyway, because we're passively picking up health orbs, energy orbs, and everything, and Equilibrium does the rest. And we can't really die, because we have Quick Thinking. And Quick Thinking will take part of our health before or part of our energy before killing us, so really cool. Also, I'm not sure if this is a thing, but it seems like quick thinking, usually you get some kind of ragdoll, not ragdoll, but you kind of start walking on your own and kind of feeling the damage. I don't know how to explain it, but your character starts losing it, let's say, right? And you cannot really do anything about it. On Titania, because she's on Razor Wing and there is no animation for that, you don't actually get that. At least it hasn't happened to me yet. If it happened to you and you actually tried it, let me know, but I haven't ever had the small ragdoll you get from quick thinking on this character. What the hell that guy was up there? Anyways, somehow they have scored. I'm not really sure how they have even scored, to be honest, but I've tried this and I've done this so many times and I have never seen them score ever. They have just kept dying and dying and dying. And there's nothing they can do to me. The Razorflies and my Dexpixia destroy them, pretty much. And you can easily do this solo without really caring. You're not really in any danger with your speed, your damage, your everything. And the way this is controllable, by the way, if you're wondering, is that I'm not sprinting. So this is this Titania build without sprinting. Some Titanias or most Titania mains have sprints on hold, and that makes it way better and way more controllable if you want to speedrun. But with the amount of strength we have, it's enough to just not sprint and be fast enough and just show. Oh, they keep spawning there. Look at that. Beautiful. So yeah, feel free to steal this Titania build and use it for your index. It's absolutely crazy for it. And you can easily go all the way to the mini-boss of this area that I don't actually remember what it's called. Usually I do, but for some reason my mind is blanking out right now. I don't remember his name. God damn it, what was his name? Yeah, his autograph, I know, but I just don't remember his name. Why do I not remember his name? Ah, whatever. Some guy in the comments will be like, oh my god, it's this guy, how do you not know? I know, but I'm like blanking out, okay. Anyways, the mission is already over. So, you know, pretty cool stuff. Oh, that guy scored a point. Look at that. Good for him. Regardless, yeah, this build is really interesting. And it is by far the best build that you can use for index, in my opinion. So, you know, if you want to go for index specifically, and you want to get yourself a lot of credits really quickly, or you want to help a friend get credits really quickly, just tell them to survive or do nothing and then use this Titania build to kill everything. Kinda. They will really not have... They can just stay AFK and do nothing, pretty much. Just tell them to like stay alive or Mesa or Rhino or something, I don't know. Or they can also go this Titania build if they can have it, which is really good. So, next up, we have a Torid build, actually. One of the weeks featured the Torid, but without its Incarnon. So you could use the Incarnon adapter in order to increase its stats, but you couldn't actually use the Incarnon itself. And the idea here, because I know a lot of people will find this funny, especially if they play Team Fortress 2, is to make the sniper build from Team Fortress 2, by making the Torid a sniper. And yeah, how does this work exactly? Well, my friend, it's through projectile flight speed, of course. And your beloved Zephyr. Because what other Warframe gives projectile flight speed, eh? You go Jetstream, you go a lot of strength, and boom, 300% projectile flight speed for your glorious sniping. Now, you may be like, no way this thing turns into a sniper like this. Oh yes, it does. It also deals a fuck ton of damage, because I'm not sure if you know, but Torid non-Incarnon has multiplicative CO, while Torid Incarnon doesn't have multiplicative CO. So this actually deals more damage than your normal Torid Incarnon, and if you want to take this for a disruption mission, this will do way better. I'm sure this might sound confusing to all the Torid players who just press Incarnon every time because they don't like the blob, but, you know, you're welcome. We're gonna see this and how strong it is, and yeah, You're gonna see it for yourself. I'm just yapping to yap. I mean, this build, I really loved it. Not just because of the idea being really cool, but because of the theme. The theme that you make Sniper from TF2 with his fucking with his toxic ball bucket priming thing. I don't remember what it is exactly because I haven't played Team Fortress 2 a lot. But this is just so funny to me. And also it's actually really fucking strong. Like dang, this wouldn't win if it was just cool. It's actually really strong. Look at this. It's just the sniper. It's a point-click adventure. You have an AWPA. And yeah, the damage is obviously red critting because we are using the crit mods plus the one and only our beloved primary equity on a Torid. Obviously, the Incarnate form on this is still good. It's not bad for taking out, you know, trash enemies, so I can like showcase this here, but it's obviously not really focused on this. The focus is mainly on the non-incarnate part of the weapon, but we can use the incarnate part of the weapon to chill a bit and use it to take the keys. There we go. Alright, now for the demos itself, or demos themselves, sorry. We can use the actual idea. So there we go. We're maxed out on stacks. Let's go to the demo. Hello, set. Yeah. Pretty cool. Usually, for level cap, especially if you prime a lot more than I did, because I didn't really shoot a lot of bullets from the compressor, you will kill this guy in like 2 bullets or 3 bullets, but yeah. That's what multiplicative CO does for you. And also this build has a flow. This build is using Speed Trigger. And Speed Trigger is kinda -1 mode because we already have enough fire rate for this, but I guess it's thematic for the fire rate that this thing has on its own. Not very sure about that. It probably has a bit more fire rate than intentionally, but who cares? It doesn't really matter. So, freeze. 5 million. But yeah, you can make this even stronger. That's kind of what I mean. It has -1 mod essentially in this build. So yeah, this is extremely broken as a setup, first of all. Because, you know, Torid Sniper, multiplicative CO, Torid Incarnate type deal. Very cool. It also has the DOT over time after you shoot the weapon itself from the cloud that the toxin thing applies. And yeah, it also has over 100% status chance, so the disruption target will freeze and be armor stripped through these two. A pretty decent build. But if it was for me, I would replace this Speed Trigger mode and probably add, I don't know, something. You can add Magnetic Capacity, you can add Prime Bane of Grenier, you can add Serration even if you don't like it because it's multiplicative CO, Serration is not bad here. You can make this Blast if you want to, but I wouldn't really advise to, this loses you damage in my opinion. Overall, you have a lot of things you can go for, so this is a really nice Torid build actually. Would I use it instead of Stahlta or some other multiplicative CO weapon? Probably not, but if you like the Torid, you can, and it will be really cool. Up next is the build that became my main build on one of my weapons, actually. And it's for the Redeemer Prime. This build actually surpassed my main build for the Redeemer Prime, and I'm really surprised to say this because my main build for the Redeemer Prime was a melee influence build. So yes, this just gapped the melee influence, with melee Dodie out of all the things as well. So, we may be very confused here and be like, a melee Dodie Redeemer Prime build. This guy is trolling. That's kind of what I thought when I saw it as well. But this is actually a hidden genius idea that not even Divine himself, the person who sent me the build, was was thinking about, most likely. I think he did this by accident, but the result is absolutely incredible. Because what does this do? Well, Melee Dodi is obviously the arcane that gives you critical damage every 10% puncture weapon status chance. Now, this seems like a really bad idea on this weapon, because as you can see, puncture is not really the highest stat, even with Jagulous Barbs. It's kinda low. So how does this work exactly? Well, you get status chance from here, you get status chance from here, and you abuse Tennokai. And abusing Tennokai and shooting this weapon, it deals Pure Blast. Now, even though it does deal Pure Blast, the actual melee Dodi buff is working here, normally. Even though this weapon has 0 puncture on the status here. So, in turn, what you get is extremely high damage blast procs by just doing essentially nothing. So at the start, before you stack Galvanized Elementalist or Whipping Wounds, this will seem really bad, but once you do, this is absolutely unstoppable and you're dealing like hundreds or tens of millions of, you know, blast procs, especially with Roar. So I'm gonna use the Wisp with the Roar again, this time without Theorem Infection, because, you know, obviously I don't need it anymore. And, yeah. Let me take a primary dexterity and showcase this real quick. Because I think this is one of the... This is probably the best type of Redeemer Prime build you can do. I don't think it can get better than this. And I was really surprised to see that a Gunblade out of all the weapons didn't actually want to use Melee Influence. Because obviously, you know, Vastalok with Melee Influence is stupid. It's genuinely stupid. It's actually so overpowered. It's better than this, in fact. It is. But let's say you don't like Vastalok, you don't own it, and then you have the Redeemer Prime and you think it's better. Or you know, you don't actually have the Vastalok to test it. You can just use this. As you see from the start, we're not doing too well. It's like okay now. Obviously, it starts looking better, but now that we're on 12x and we have stacked, if we add Roar, we suddenly get range, which the Redeemer Prime normally lacks, and that's already 2 million blast proc on these guys. And yeah, things just disintegrate. 16 million blast proc. It is actually so crazy. I am sure Divine didn't intend for this tech to appear, but holy shit does it work. In fact, build pioneers pioneered a better Redeemer Prime build than Melee Influence. Now you may be like, oh, but with Melee Influence everyone around you would die, so? So what? You think Melee Influence is better because it's good on base Stahlta? Melee Influence doesn't deal hundreds of millions of damage unless you hit an enemy for like 50 million times right next to them. This has way more range and way more damage. I don't care what you say. This, especially when you go to higher level, will absolutely shred the hordes of enemies that will be coming to you. And Melee Influence will just tickle them in comparison. I know because I've tested it. This is 100 times better than Melee Influence. And I'm really glad to say because, you know, I'm someone who doesn't like Melee Influence. Not because it's broken, but because it has basically zero interaction and zero thought put behind it. Oh guys, I have Melee Influence on my weapon. Let me add electricity and status damage and then just play. You know? I don't really like that. This has synergy between the arcane and the weapon instead. And it does show because the results speak for themselves. I don't think a 20 million blast proc like this is very normal. And the highest I've seen from this is like 70 million blast proc, and it's obviously with this wisp you can get this higher. You use actual normal Rhino, you use something else maybe for extra status damage like a Dante or a squad. Using this Osarin maybe for the blast procs dealing toxin procs as well. Even though I don't really think this needs more damage. The damage is enough. Just stay alive. Staying alive is the best thing you can do here, honestly. Look at that! I'm like so far away, this thing loses all of its damage after like 10 meters, but it doesn't really care anymore, because the blast proc, from what I can tell, is unaffected since it takes from the base damage of the weapon. It doesn't matter how far away I am if the blast proc actually kills him. It is very, very cool. So yes, you increase your Redeemer's Prime range by its own from using this. And obviously, it's still good at killing these guys. Now, as I said, Vassalok is still better. It's sadly still a better choice. But this is a... this is very cool. I love this. This is definitely one of the build pioneers builds of all time. 10 million right there from this far away. 10 million from that far away with this weapon, this doesn't happen. This weapon after 10 meters loses all of its damage, as I said. So... really happy with how this turned out, and it made the Redeemer Prime actually a lot better of a weapon than it normally is. Just a weird interaction between melee Doti, blast procs, and everything. And it kind of reminds me of the unintentional interaction that Gara had with melee Doti, where she would get infinite critical damage and then you would get negative intangible damage cap on every press of your one, which was definitely a bug. This one is not a bug actually. This one is just plays by the mechanics of, you know, of the weapon, and the results are great. And hey, since I actually enjoyed this enough to finish the mission, I'm actually gonna extract, because hey, still essence is still essence, and we need Kuva. But yeah, I love this. This is a very, very cool Redeemer Prime build. And as I said, it became my main build. And therefore, I gave it the maximum score for effectiveness in the series. I gave it 10 out of 10. It is the only build in the series that got 10 out of 10 effectiveness. Because it is genuinely the only build in the series that I made my own. Aside from the Titania build. But the Titania build has like one application, which is the index, right? This has every application. This is just a better Redeemer Prime build in general, which is really, really great. Up next, we have another build by Divine, actually. And this one is an Exergis build. So this is a shotgun that a lot of people love. This is a very, very cool shotgun. I'm gonna hide the build. Alright. Just hide all of this. This is not needed. Anyways, the Exergis has a magazine of 1, pretty good reload speed, and it's kind of like a pump action shotgun with 1 bullet in the magazine. So you have essentially an infinite ammo pump action shotgun. And this is a very cool thing, especially because the damage of the Exergis is absolutely wild. 1620 base damage. That is really high. That is one of the highest in the entire game. So I really love the idea behind this, but Divine wanted to take it even further. So instead, he made it 3 ammo in the magazine, first of all, which is very, very cool. He also added primary crux, and then the build normally doesn't have this mode, so I'm gonna remove it so I can show how the build normally works, and then I'm gonna add it back so you can see how you should play this build if you ever try to, because holy shit, without prime counterbalance, this build is just kind of unplayable. It is very, very funny though. For the Warframe of choice, Divine told me to use a HydroidPrime with energized munitions. Yes, a HydroidPrime with arcane tempo and energized munitions. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially lost it with this build. Like, my god. What even? So basically now, instead of having a pump action shotgun, we broke the pump action of the shotgun and made some fully automatic shenanigans, because the fire rate on this shotgun is actually really high. Like extremely high. I didn't even know this, but this shotgun has 3 fire rate at base. And 3 fire rate at base is a lot. And obviously because it's semi-automatic, if you add fire manual weapons continuously, you know, our favorite thing, it can do this. And as you can see, it has a lot of recoil. Now, having trouble stacking primary cracks, I'm gonna stack it real quick. So yes, welcome to Divine's Exergis build. There is a lot of screen shake happening here, because there is a lot of recoil. There is quite literally a lot of recoil. My god. Alright, so now that you know, because it is unplayable like this, let's be realistic. Like this, the build is unplayable. You have to pull down so hard, it is dizzy as fuck after a while, your head will literally hurt. So what you do is, you add prime counterbalance, of course. Look at that! Now the shotgun is usable. And no, I don't want anybody to say, oh, but they will remove the recoil next patch. Shut up. They don't remove recoil next patch. They are ruining recoil next patch. That's what you are meant to say. Next patch, if we don't have an option to turn the recoil on while screen shake is off, I'm taking a break from the game. Okay? I'm dead ass right now. Until an option is available, because Megan did say on her dev short that an option will be available, I am not playing the game like that. I refuse. I want my recoil. Battlefield 6 just came out. The guns have a lot of recoil and I'm loving it, okay? I don't want that shit. I'm sorry. Call me a crybaby, call me whatever you want. That shit is unplayable to me. I am an FPS player. I use recoil. I even love recoil because it makes some of the guns feel way better than they normally do. So no, I am not doing this. Anyways, speaking of which though, how about this now? Now this is way more interesting, isn't it? This is more like it. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yes, this absolutely fucks, by the way. Like, no question, this thing, crazy. And no prime counterbalance was in fact not in the game when this build happened, so I had to test it with Divine's incredible recoil control shenanigans. Which was really funny to me, but obviously, if you want this to be really good, you use this and it absolutely shreds anything. Like, holy shit, look at this. Obviously, Hara is not needed, but he does get the huge reload speed. So I like it more than this. The fire rate also helps a lot. But you know, you have Chroma or Wisp with a Elemental Ward, this can work as well. You play in a squad, obviously this will work, but Energized Munition is the only must-have thing, in my opinion, because without it, this is how long the mag lasts, instead. So yeah, do use Energized Munition or a Arcane Pistolier at least. Oh man, this feels so good to play. This genuinely feels so good to play as a weapon, not gonna lie. So yeah, this full auto Exergis build, great. Absolutely amazing. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Up next, we have another similar situation, but this time on the Vectis Prime, and this build was actually submitted by HydroidPrime. So on the Vectis, you know, you also have okay fire rate of 2.67. You have 2 magazines, so, you know, you can increase it more. But instead of making a full auto Vectis build by increasing the magazine capacity, what if we made a full auto Vectis build by in fact decreasing the magazine capacity? Like this. Welcome to HydroidPrime's Vectis build. This, I don't know. I have no words for this one. Honestly, I'm just gonna show you what you don't know, because some modes here you probably never heard of them. You might have heard of this one, and that it's very expensive, but this makes this build actually viable because this is multiplicative 100% damage. It could be, in theory, replaced by crit modes and shit, but obviously we don't really need that. And then we have Aero Agility, Fractalized Reset, they both give reload speed, but Aero Agility gives you reload speed while aim gliding, and this gives you reload speed when you're casting an ability. And this makes it so that you get more reload speed, but you're also reducing your magazine to 1. And then this gives you negative weapon recoil by 90%, but you reduce the fire rate. But it doesn't matter because we have semi-rifle cannonade. But it wouldn't matter anyways, because fire rate in this build is just a stat that exists. It doesn't actually do anything. And you will see what I mean. For the actual Warframe, HydroidPrime suggested that we should go a Kullervo. We don't have to go a Kullervo, but that was his suggestion, so we're sticking with it. And the idea is that we're using Kullervo with Breach Surge and his third ability, Collective Curse. Now this is not exactly what he sent me as a build, but I found this to be a bit more consistent and more to my liking since I like health tanking a lot. As far as people know, at least. People should know me by now for this, but yeah. The idea is basically, you know, Collective Curse, Breach Surge gives you the damage, and then we have Aero Advantage to say aim gliding, and yeah, let's just showcase the build, because obviously you might be very confused looking at all this and be like, how the hell does this even work? So let's show how this works, shall we? And there is only one single caveat on this build, and I don't even think that's like something that HydroidPrime is to blame, but it's the game to blame, because what the fuck? The Vectis, when you shoot it with this build and you shoot it while aim gliding, it's inaccurate. Why? I don't know, but it is. It's in fact inaccurate, and I hate that. But here is how the build actually works. So you press Collective Curse, then you aim glide and just shoot. And as you can see, Fractalized Reset plus the aim glide shenanigans result in a lot of fire rate and a lot of damage. So yeah. The only really bad thing about this build is that Fractalized Reset only lasts 5 seconds. And to that I say, D, please, this arcane is already so niche, can we make it like 20 seconds instead? Even if D makes this arcane 20 seconds, nobody will use it. But at least it would be easier to use it on this build, you know? That one niche Kullervo build that uses a fully automatic Vectis, where we completely broke the bolt action of this weapon. So yeah, D please. If you could, possibly. But yeah, as you can see, it's very inaccurate. You just sometimes miss for no reason. As you can see, it just sometimes misses. If we shoot it from the ground, it's fine, but obviously this is an aim gliding build. And yeah, it's very sad that it just misses like this, even though you have 0 recoil on the weapon. Very weird, to be honest. Does it do damage? Absolutely, it shreds, but hey, I don't know like what you're supposed to do, honestly. But it's really funny seeing the Vectis Prime shoot like that. And obviously you can do this probably better on other frames like Chroma or Haro, maybe, I'm not very sure. But his idea was Kullervo, so we're sticking with it. Very interesting. I'm really sad that it works the way it does and you actually lose your accuracy when you're aim gliding, because I was like, what the hell is this aero mode? What are we using it for? It was the first time I've ever saw this mode in my life, and the fact that I'm like, dude, this has a use actually was crazy. But it seems like the use is just not working as well as I would think. But this build still won because it was really funny and it worked well. So yeah. Up next, it's Araikawa's Burst on Incarnate build, except it's the Panthera Prime instead. So what do I mean by this? This is the build itself, by the way. So this build is very interesting. First of all, you may see, I have Severe Contagion. Where is the cold? There is no cold, matter of fact. The idea of this build is that you have viral electricity for the damage, and then you use a Gauss with thermal transfer and Zada's Whisper. Because how this weapon works is that the projectiles bounce in between enemies. And because they do that, Zada's Whisper just kind of goes crazy with that. And then, for thermal transfer, you actually want to use only the cold part in order to CC them with Severe Contagion and increase your critical damage of the weapon. And finally, you just kind of try to use as many Vigilante modes as possible on your weapons, sentinels, and whatever else you get, probably. So yeah, I only have one Vigilante mode here, and this still works fine. So, you know, very good. Let's showcase how it actually works, and we have Prime Bane of the Orokin on this build, so we're gonna take it versus the Orokin. And obviously this can change depending on the faction, so you know, you go with Orokin, Prime Bane of the Orokin. You go with Grineer, Prime Bane of Grineer, etc. So, let's see how it plays out. So, let's do Thermal Sunder, the cold part. Go next to this guy, so we get energy back. Zada's Whisper, 4th ability, and just... You see how the bullet is attracted onto the target and just hits them multiple times? Yeah, that's kind of what happens. And, yeah, it goes nuts. Also, we have 10 primary croc stacks already, so... Yeah. Very cool. Thank you, Araikawa, for the build suggestion. The non-incarnate burst on Prime goes crazy. And as you can see, we are orange critting a bit. It is due to Arcane Avenger plus Kavat. But, you know, it is what it is. We're playing Gauss anyway. He has pretty much immortality through sealed recharge modes, so do you really care? Oh yeah, also my damage was lost a lot because Zada's Whisper wasn't proccing, so... You know, Zada's Whisper is a big part of what makes this build good, but it's just a synergistic build. It has a lot of synergies going on all together. Araikawa also said you can do this with Frost, but I feel like the fire rate reload speed part of Gauss is just way better. Way more funny. Yeah. Also, yeah, if you have Prime Sure-Footed on your Gauss, this is gonna work even better. I don't. It goes kinda crazy, doesn't it? Who would have thought? The Panthera Prime just being this absolute monstrosity when you pair it with Zada's Whisper and the thermal transfer Gauss. That is kinda crazy. Another person that did a Zada's Whisper idea was HolyCarp, the person who also did the Sniper Torid build. But he used Zada's Whisper on fucking Mirage. So I was like, what the hell? This adds even more synergies though to the Panthera Prime, and I did prefer this build. But Zada's Whisper Mirage was something that was not in my bingo card, that is for sure. So that took me out of, you know, that got me, let's just say that got me. Up next, another build by Araikawa, back to back, and we have their Ambassador build. Araikawa's Ambassador build is one that is very interesting. So this is my normal, regular Ambassador build. It works fine, it does well. And this is Araikawa's. Now, I really like this build. The only part that I kind of disliked about the build is the fact that I found out later that if Araikawa used Blast, or sorry, if they used Gas instead of Blast, they would have had an even more powerful weapon. And therefore they lost some points from that, but not enough for them to lose the episode. They won the competition on that episode, and this is actually the lost episode, so I felt like it was needed for me to showcase how the best build actually looks like in a mission on a demo. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know how the episode got lost even. I just tried to edit it one day and it was just not there. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. Sad times, but the idea, anyways. You see how our magazine is higher? We have this shit. On reload, deal increased damage per round loaded based on max magazine size that lasts for 10 seconds. Now, this in paper doesn't sound good, but in practice, this gives us 400% base damage on the weapon. 400% is a lot. It's more than primary, dexterity, merciless, and deadhead. Those give 360. And the best part about it is that you can proc this by simply switching the firing mode of the weapon. So if I swap from the primary fire to the charge shot, then this actually procs and gives me more damage to the charge shot so I can immediately use it. And then the charge shot does blast procs, which, you know, I wish there were gas procs, but it does blast procs, and those blast procs absolutely shred. So let's go to Palace, because if we're gonna see, this is a Bane of Corpus build, so, you know, anti-corpus shenanigans, let's hit it. Me and my homies hate Parvo's Gremlin. Let's get it. So I'm thinking it spawns there, right? No, okay. Yeah, this is a fun place. Alright, perfect. So, at the start, the gun itself doesn't perform that well. It's like, okay. But as you can see now that we're running out of ammo, we can swap form after we run out. And now we have the damage on the top right. You see that 416%? That is primary plated round. And our damage is pretty crazy. And now that it runs out of ammo, we can swap again. And now we have a primary fire with a buff of 389%. Now, why is it not the same percentage? Because the alt fire has a bit more ammo consumption. Therefore, it doesn't work the same. But we do see like 7 million blast procs working on these guys. It does deal quite a bit of damage. And, you know, primary fire is okay. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. The alt fire is pretty crazy. And obviously you don't need to do the mechanic that I'm doing and swap every form all the time. But I think it's cool abusing both of the weapons forms to make it do better, you know? I like that, so I'm gonna use it, personally. So back to full auto. As you can see, full auto is not bad either, as long as you hit the headshot, obviously. 10 million blast proc on those guys. I think it was like 9.6 million. So close to 10 million. It's a pretty cool Ambassador build. Now, Ambassador got done dirty on Orax's patch, and sadly is not as good anymore. So this build could have been better before that patch, but hey, we'll never find out, sadly. Because they decided to nerf this weapon for some fucking reason anyway. Oh, but they increased the base damage of the primary fire. Yeah, bro. So good. Holy wowzers. Anyways, I don't know why this weapon got nerfed. It wasn't good to begin with. People were asking for buffs to this weapon. So hopefully they listens and rebuffs it somehow. Like some kind of crit buff, some kind of status buff, something. Maybe don't make it pure electricity. I don't know. Give it something, man. Having pure electricity on a fully automatic weapon makes it so that Galvanized Aptitude performs worse, since Galvanized Aptitude gives you damage based on the amount of status effects your weapon can proc. So, a normal weapon has 3, this only has 1. So around 160% of base damage is lost to nothing, to air. Not great. D, please fix. The build is good though, still. It does perform pretty good. So if you want to try it, go ahead, give it a shot. But just saying, I hope Ambassador does get buffed so this build can see the light of day again. At least on my arsenal. We have one final build remaining. This is from the last week, and it is a Stahlta build, and it is the winner of the last week on my favorite weapon. The winner of that last build was UglyB, and his Stahlta build is something that doesn't have much to do with the Stahlta. It has the idea in mind that is already really cool, and it's this one. So this is a gas Stahlta with spectral duration and for some reason status duration. Now it will all make sense, especially when you realize Hush is in place here. It will all make sense. Hush is something that I added because I think, you know, UglyB would want this here for his build, but he couldn't have it because he couldn't forma it enough. A lack of forma is not something that I will, you know, disallow, but we're going to our beautiful Ivara, and we're going to Well of Life. So Well of Life and gas is something that a lot of people know. You basically make this guy, you shoot him with a gas proc, the gas proc stays on this guy, and everyone that walks close to him, they get the gas proc itself. And then obviously we're shooting a Stahlta, so the gas proc is hitting. It's hitting for a lot. But there was one thing that got added that made this so much better, and that is this Coyote. Why is this Coyote so much better? Now you may say, oh, because you can group the guys next to the target that is on the gas proc, right? Well, sort of. It's like that, but it's even better. It's actually even better than that. So let's see. Oh, we got the good Talisman. Bet. So, what exactly is happening? Well, we add the wire because we're using the funny wire augment. We go on this guy. Now we need to jump to activate the ability, but we activate it on him, let's say. Stack a bit of primary crux. Alright, perfect. And now, look. Skyoted pulls the target that is on Well of Life 2. It pulls him as well. So you move the gas proc around to multiple areas. 3.4 million gas proc just moving around and killing everyone. This is so cool. And obviously it's Stahlta, so you know the gas procs will hit regardless. So yeah, I don't know how you thought of this or if this was intended, but holy shit, UglyB, I was so happy when I saw this. This is absolutely beautiful. Look at this. Just moving the gas proc around is just, it's so funny. Look at that! 13 million! Oh my god, I love it. The Stahlta is such a funny weapon. This is peak, you know? Look at that! Yo, we need to get to this guy, man. There. And you see what I mean? You can move the gas proc around. Obviously, I can't grab the Eximus, but I can bring my guy closer to him. So who cares? Oh, this is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, UglyB. Thank you so much for showcasing me this. I am so glad to see something like this actually exist in the game. Anyways, yeah, that's all the builds. Build Pioneer Season 1 went excellently. Even though, obviously, in terms of use, I expected so that people wouldn't watch it as much. Unless it's a very popular weapon, maybe. But at the same time, this is not what the series was all about. The series wasn't about, like, making profit for me or anything. It was mostly about having fun with the game and finding ways to have fun with the game. And I think we absolutely succeeded on that. And I really hope you guys can actually see that. And maybe more of you will join for Season 2. Because of Season 2, we will obviously have our guns with double arcanes, we will have more new weapons and more limitations on weapons. Like, for example, in the Stahlta video and the Stahlta week, I said you cannot use primary acuity at all, because I knew that primary acuity absolutely breaks this weapon. And as you can see, UglyB in this build can easily use primary acuity instead of galvanized scope, but choose not to because it was not within my rules. So if you want to use this build and you use primary acuity, this is going to be even better. This build doesn't have any multi-shot. You know? It has one multi-shot. And it doesn't have acuity either. But it works so well. So yes, this series has gone very, very well so far. And I hope it becomes even better for Season 2. And I'm hoping I will see more of you guys there and onto the stream so we can test these shirts together and give them grades. Because it is really fun for me, and from what I understand, it's really fun to you as well. Whenever the weapon that is picked is not some kind of weird one. Like, yeah, there were some weeks that we picked weird weapons, I'm gonna be real. But it all worked out for the better. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.